Hey everyone, before we get into this week's episode, just wanted to give you a bit of a heads up. We had some technical issues with the audio on this episode and a few episodes from the YXH Conference. I've done what I can to try and recover the audio from my mic and Alicia's mic, but for some reason our guest's mic, in this case Aaron's mic, was not working. So hopefully you can still enjoy this episode. There's a few parts where it's really hard to hear what he's saying because we're all talking at the same time. You know how it goes. So I did my best. Hopefully you can still enjoy this. For the most part, you can hear what Aaron is saying, but there's just a few spots where it's hard to understand. So just wanted to give you a heads up. Hopefully you can still enjoy this episode, and thanks for watching. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of JourneyCast. My name is Levi, and this is my co-host.
I'm Alicia.
Today, we're joined by Aaron Boyd. Some of your friends call you Boydo.
Boydo, yeah. Void Machine, Mind Dumping, whatever.
Wow.
These are great names.
Mind Dumping was when my probably 6-year-old tried to write Void Machine. She wrote M-A-H-E-E-M, new word, D-O-M-F-E-I-N. So it sort of stuck as Maheen Dumping, and then Maheen then turned into Machine.
Yeah.
And then it was like, yeah. So,
yeah.
Well, it'd be worse.
Yeah. Aaron, thanks so much for being here.
Well, thanks for having me.
You've been leading worship and in that circle for how long now? Like, when did you get your start?
So I got saved when I was 18.
Yeah.
I was brought up in a church, but it was like really strict. You know, like drums are of the devil. You know, that kind of stuff. And then I was a bit wild. And I grew up Belfast, Northern Ireland. I kind of am at the tail end of the Troubles. And the Troubles, if you don't know, we had 25 years where people just bombed and killed each other in Northern Ireland.
Oh, wow.
And we can talk more about that if you want, but because it's kind of quite cool history in it. But in 1998, the peace agreement was signed. So I was 18 years old at that point, and the entire country voted on essentially peace and what that would look like. And then the two opposing political parties got together and drew up agreements, and lots of different people were involved and paved the way in that. And there's some dramatic things had to happen.
Yeah.
But so that it was amazing, and it absolutely transformed the island of Ireland. Because Ireland's two different countries. There's Northern Ireland and Southern Ireland, and so I'm part of Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
So pre the agreement, you can kind of get into a bunch of stuff that you're not really meant to get into really easily. And but I still went to church. I still did all that, but it just didn't really. And absolutely no interest in it. I just went to keep my parents happy. And I have the best parents on the planet, and they love the Lord personally, so they do. But
you're just trying to honor them.
Fire, brimstone. Yeah. It was, you know. And then I went to a camp and seen a bunch of people just worshiping away. And I kind of got a bit more curious. Summer went, and then when school started back, my last year in school, long story short, but I ended up in this small double wide at the back of a farmer's field, and it was the first time I feel like I'd really ever encountered the Holy Spirit, and it was just like the big finger on my life.
Oh, wow.
I was like, this is it.
I think it's cool when it's those spaces you don't expect it to be, right?
Absolutely. No crazy altar call, no anything. I was just in it, and it was the same people that were worshiping at the front of, the camp. And that's when I asked him, back a couple of months before, what church do you go to? And the funny thing is, I have a question for the Lord, because so we drive down, there's me and two friends, Adam Bell, a.k.a. Ding, and then Hazel Scott, the Gins, because you think ginger hair. And so Gins was driving, and we go to this place called Dungannon, which is about half an hour, 30 minutes away from Belfast. And we're driving around trying to find this church, the River of Life Fellowship Church. Can't find it anywhere. And I see this thing that said Lifeboat Mission, and I thought, well, if they're believers, then sure, I can figure out where this is. And I literally was going for a show because I wasn't saved at this point, and I seen them dancing and all, and I thought it was hilarious. I was just going to this is going to be like a laugh here.
Yeah.
And so I rapped the door, and a Scottish couple answered the door, and I said, listen, any idea where the River of Life Fellowship Church is? And they said, funny you should mention that. we've just been phoned and invited to this church. We can't go, but they gave us the directions. And I was like, oh, okay. And all I remember there was a big plant pot, and there was a bee flying around, and I was like, hopefully don't get stung.
Yeah.
And then they gave us the directions, and it was miles, it was nowhere, in the city. It was way out of the city or the town, and it was at the back of a farmer's field, and it was really awkward because when you walked in, you sort of walked in at the front. And then, lo and behold, there was this guy just dancing away in a double wide, you know what I mean? And I was like, and then this girl got up, and what I know was sort of now to be sort of prophetic, and she started kind of operating, and I was like, everything she said just hit me right between the eyes. And I went out, and we were driving down the motorway on the way home, and I said to the gins to pull over, and I pulled over at the side of the road, and I got out and I gave my life to the Lord, and that was it.
Wow.
And that was the start of it. And then I found a church in Belfast. Do you know the song, These Are the Days of Elijah?
Oh, yeah.
So that's my church. Declare the holy comes.
Yeah.
Right. So CFC Belfast. And a guy called Robin Mark, worship leader there.
Yeah.
And it was non-denominational. And they were mad charismatic back then. So it was mental.
What you said last night, you were recovering charismatic.
So, because I think in charismaticism, there's also a bit of law wrapped in there. It's like, Lord, I'm doing this, so therefore you need to. And it's like, no, he's already done it all. And partaking what he's done.
Yeah, and he's already got a plan.
He's already done it. So, but flags and drum kits, and I was always musical, played the trumpet for like 8 years, and was in the school musicals. And
So that started before you became a believer. You already were into music.
Brother, amazing saxophonist. Dad was in the Salvation Army. He played cornet. My mum did the tours with her sisters and her brother in the gospel halls, and they did their wee songs and they sang and stuff. So just always been musical. That sort of felt easy. And then I kind of was a bit of a hack at still am a hack at the guitar. But I started just leading worship with my peers, and that was honestly that was the start of it. And it was like the minute that I got saved, there was this thing ignited inside me, not leading worship, but just being a worshiper. It was like I felt like I could levitate. You know what I mean? It was like it's unbelievable. Back then at the flags and all, the prophetic dancers and everything. It was like, but it was brilliant, free, totally free. We're very much removed from a lot of what we see now. There's no real worship pastors still back home. Like that's not a job. It's not a career. It's not something you aim for. It's just you're a volunteer. You go to the church and this is my gift and I serve in that way. Now our church has a worship pastor because there's like 100 volunteers and they all need to be rooted and that kind of stuff. But we just employed a new worship pastor and he doesn't lead worship. So it's like scheduling, the great people that are there. Same part.
There's a lot of the administrative behind the scenes, the vision.
When are you free? When are you away?
Wow.
And this the campus I go to. I don't even like using the word campus, but there's 40 of us in inner East Belfast, right in the heartland of. I mean, we're a mile and a half away from sort of the slightly bigger one, and we have people. Some of our welcome team. You got to figure out. Are they able to actually stand up because they've had a rough night the night before, and it's hard to see it, but they're still walking. There's lots of drugs in that area, gang, paramilitary stuff. And what it's like, it really is when you see people's lives completely transformed. Wow. So leading worship in there is, I sit down at a piano and 40 people. It's like being at a football game or something like that. It's amazing. It's unbelievable.
Wow.
I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. So when you said that change happened inside of you, and you just wanted to be a worshiper, I'm guessing you're not just talking about music. You're like, how did that change your day to day? What was it that you started noticing that was different?
So I went from, gonna not incriminate myself, but I went from the guy that my wife was warned to stay away from. To then becoming the person that we started dating, just after school. And my life absolutely transformed, like genuinely noticeable. Like I'd be sitting in school and we'd have free periods and then I'd just start telling everyone about Jesus and they could see the change in your life, which people then can't really argue with in that sense,
Right.
Like you can argue theology all day long, but when you see just the change from this to this.
From this rough, scary guy to this guy that you could open up to and trust, and that's not you. That's God that's done that work in you.
Because we're spirit, soul, and body. So before you get saved, there was people at different ways, but it can't make sense in my head. I think it's in Timothy it talks about it. Spirit, soul, and body. So we're created of three things, and people do differ on certain views. But everyone has a spirit.
Yeah.
Everyone has a body, and everyone has a soul. Soul, mind, will, and emotions. Your body, your physical body, and then you've got your spirit. And before Christ, it's independent. It's dead in itself. So when you become a Christian and you give your life to the Lord, that is the thing that's absolutely ignited, and it's made you inside. And then our journey of dying to ourselves is when we die to ourselves, then that spirit side takes over and overtakes our flesh and overtakes our mind, our will, and emotions. So becoming more like Christ is an effortless change rather than going. But it was just, I was into everything, drugs and everything, and all of that stopped. And there was a noticeable change in every single aspect of my life, which was the inner man working out. And that was just the start. And it's your whole life will be, dying to ourselves. So that is the message of the gospel, essentially, is Christ crucified, death, resurrection, and now we die to ourselves. And then this thing inside just, effortlessly takes over. We begin to change. Because it's very hard.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to get worse, actually, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 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 And I'm curious too, like we've had some of our students at the church have shared that, it's just like, hey, you're asking us to be a light and to share Jesus, but that's easier said than done. And like, yeah, I get that. I get that. So how was it when you started sharing with people the gospel? What did you have to do to just stop caring what people thought of you? Because I'd assume before that, the person you were before, I'm sure would have cared a lot. What changed about that? What effort did you make? And what change was Jesus making in your life to help you just like, you know what, I don't care.
I suppose my personality was just like super extroverted.
Right.
I'm energized by people, love being around people. And that was just it was an easy thing. So it honestly wasn't hard. It was just like, my wife always says, I know what you're into and I know what you're reading because you tell everyone.
Right.
Yeah.
There's no secrets around you. Yeah.
No. So I'm really fired up about my Star Wars collection at the moment.
Yeah.
I think everyone's hearing about my Star Wars stuff, Or if I'm doing a deep dive into something, I'm not a theologian, but I love topical stuff. So I'll read something in the Bible and I'll be like, why is that?
I want to know more about that.
Yeah. And like, so what yours eschatology or creation or something like that, like these deep dives into like where's Sheol, where did that all come from? And and all
we just did our last episode. Actually, we had one of our pastors on. We were like, were there dragons in the Bible?
We
stuff
talked
like
about
that.
dinosaurs and the whole thing. Yeah. It was pretty funny. Yeah. We had a good time.
Yeah.
And if Mr. God created it all, which he did.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. Yeah.
I always say like when we get to heaven, New Earth, I want to be able to like rock climb without fear and I'm falling and then have a pet tiger.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got here and immediately went rock climbing.
Yeah.
Where do you do that? Like, where did you go? Okay.
Yeah. I thought you went to the one, yeah.
Or like, there's just some cliffs.
I used to travel with an extra bag, and then especially for something like northern Michigan in the winter, it's like the most densely concentrated area of ice on the floors of Lake Superior. So this sort of evolved into, I'd bring a giant duffel bag full of ice climbing gear, and then we'd all quest into the woods and we'd go climb frozen waterfalls,
Oh, man.
TSA is like, what's with all this metal hooks and ropes and...
I remember my first time ever coming climbing in the States, and I went with a buddy of mine, and I used to run an outdoor store, like an REI.
Okay.
And I worked there for 7 years and loved it. And I went to Yosemite National Park. I went climbing there. Didn't do any big wall stuff, but did all the slightly lower down stuff. I wouldn't trust myself up there. It's all logistics. I didn't have experience of that. And we were coming through the airport in Dublin. And when you climb with, like chalk. Now they're more now, and you're and it dries your fingers out.
Yeah.
And we were going through customs and immigration is in Dublin. So fun fact, if you ever want to fly in or out of Belfast or North or of Ireland, go into Dublin because you clear immigration there. So when you land in the States or you land anywhere else, you're automatically in just a domestic terminal. So it's
Nice.
Oh, nice.
But they pulled us aside because I was going out for a month and my buddy was going out for 3 months, and they really interrogated us, because we were like skint. We didn't really have much money.
Yeah.
We were camping in a place called the Sunnyside Walk-In Campsite, so we can't book. And they're like, well, let me see your reservations. And it's called the Sunnyside Walk-In Campsite. You can't book. So they really dug in and they got all our bags and they started looking through our bags. And what happens? They open up
Oh, weapons in there, yeah.
They'll have a big jam bag of white powder. What is this?
Oh,
So I was you can stick it up your nose all day long.
Yeah.
Blood really sore head.
bloody nose. Yeah, dry it out.
Oh, no.
Yeah, no, all day. I went for a month, and I actually, I called it my kind of year out. I went on a sort of like a year out where I kind of fell away from the Lord, and I didn't want anything to do with it. And I ended up we ended up in Yosemite with my buddy. He was going out for 3 months. Long story on that, but he ended up coming back 2 months afterwards, and he was engaged to a girl, and he now lives in San Diego, and that was the start of it, for him.
Wow.
But in that trip, my wife was actually away, and she went to our senior pastor and was like, "You need to pray for Boyle because he's just went off on a bender." I don't know. I gave too much of myself and didn't invest, and I absolutely burnt myself out to the point where I just felt like this all feels like karaoke. And it was becoming a bit of a moment.
Yeah.
And so I went on a bender for a year. And this was then essentially the end of it. So I was out in that sort of September 2001, September 11, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It was around that time. And my friend wanted to go to church. And I was like, I don't want to go to church. Like, that's sick. But I was like, all right, well, go with you anyway. And we're hours away from the town where he wanted to go to. And we're hitchhiking. And standing at the side of the road, and we're early in the morning. I'm tired. I don't want to go to this thing, but I'm just going to go to make him happy. And the Lord always finds a way. He can't run away. He's always on, and he's always like like the prodigal son. It's like there's always just grace that leads you home in the middle of it. So I'm sitting at the side of the road, and then this car pulls up, and these guys pick us up, and they're like, "Where are you going?" We're going down to I think it's called Oakhurst or something like that, and we're going down here. And they're like, "Oh, well, we're not going all the way, but we can bring you halfway." And we're in the car, and I hear this Christian music on the go, and I'm sitting in the back of the car, and then these guys are like, "Yeah," and I'm saying, "Is that Jars of Clay?" Because it was one of the bands I love listening to. Dear God, surround me. I think so. That was playing. Is that Jars of Clay? And they're like, "Oh, are you believers?" And then my buddy was like, "Yeah, I'm a believer." And I was like, "Yes, sort of." And these guys started praying for us in the car. They gave us food. They gave us money. I wept for about 90 minutes in that car. And they dropped us off. I was sitting beside the road. I was so tired from crying so much because it was like the Lord's definitely chased me across the world here.
Yeah.
And I was like, "James, I'm not going to go. I'm so tired. I don't want to go." But then what pulls up is a car with a bed in the back. These two guys just drove around the States, right? And they're two stoners, and they had a bed in the back. They're like, "Man, jump in."
Yeah.
And I lay in the bed, and I slept the whole way down to the church.
God's like, "You need a bed? Here is a bed."
I know, it was just like, and I was like, "Okay, okay, Lord."
Yeah.
And then we were walking down the road, and we were miles. It felt like we were walking in the middle of nowhere, trying to find this. He hadn't a clue where he was going. And there was one bend, and I literally was just about to say, "James, I'm turning around," and I'm going back, and a car pulled over. And it was a woman who was like, "Where are you going?" He named the church. And she said, "Oh, that's where I'm going right now. Jump in." So she literally just took us around like 100 yards, and she wouldn't have turned up. I wouldn't have been there.
Wow.
And then we walked in, seen this guy going across. My friend James says, "We're two guys from Ireland. We're both climbers. He's here for a month. I'm here for 3, and I want to help your church." And then the guy burst out crying. They were planning for climbers to help with this.
Oh wow.
Oh, wow. Goodness.
I was like, "Holy smokes." So I came back home, and then I said to Jill, I was like, we were dating at that time, and I was like, told her, and she just burst out crying. I was like,
Wow.
all right. And that was, and that's a side story, but it was like those moments where you find these things in life, and there's our times where it's like, life is really hard. We talk about those red letter days, those moments. That's why in the wilderness, when the children of Israel were told, like make an altar, like not like a sacrificial altar, but build a stone altar here, because we remember this faithfulness in those moments.
Yes.
And all those wee stories, as we have these adventures, you remember back to those moments where God has been faithful.
Yeah.
And those things help you move forward, And so that was always a funny one for me. The stoners picking me up in a day when I said it was back,
That's crazy. Yeah. So when did you get into, I'm curious, into professionally into the worship scene? You got saved. Was that was the second time you got, or the first time you got saved?
Well, I mean, I was saved, but I just sort
recommitted.
of that was it. So that would have been 2001. So I was probably like 22 at that point. So it was like 3.5 years, and then 4 years into it.
Yeah.
Got married when I was 23.
Yeah.
So then I was 25, and we literally were just about to have our first kid, and we do really well in change. I'm not afraid of change or any of that stuff, but I didn't go to college or any of that stuff. I just went climbing mountains and did that. Worked in a retail store, and then we'd take holidays and we'd just go and go to the French Alps or or whatever. Or go questing around Ireland. And when I was 25, we were just about to have our first kid, Lily. And I really felt like I needed to leave this job, but I didn't know what I was leaving into. And music was not a thing. I'd written God of the City and all of that kind of stuff. I hadn't actually God of the City came after that. Sorry, it was 2006. I was leading worship and stuff and doing bits and pieces for sure, but it wasn't this idea of, remember, it's not a job back home.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
These big sort of like Christian entertainment doesn't exist in that sense. So, but I knew, and we had great counsel around us, great friends. And one guy said, it's okay to make a wrong decision, but the wrong thing's to stay in the wrong decision, and that's really stuck with me. And I had a conversation with a friend last week or before I left, and that's what I said to him as well. We get to work some things out. You made a wrong decision, and then we fixed it. You mean it's okay. Grace for that all day long. Yeah. And then I was figuring out, we had a real small mortgage, and one of our friends is really great with numbers, and I was like, well, I could do this, I could borrow this, I could do this. And he said to me, don't do God's job for him. If he said this, which we all feel like is right, then let him carry you along in the process. And so as soon as I left, I got a phone call from a friend who was a window cleaner. And he was like, Aaron, I heard that you're looking work. He's got a load of, like building sites and stuff he needs to do, but his domestic stuff, which isn't a real thing here, but you run around just cleaning people's windows in their houses.
Right.
That was really suffering for him. So he said, I want to teach you. And then actually one of my friends as well was looking for work, and that guy called Ross. And so the two of us, he trained us how to clean windows. And then he said, whenever you understand how this works, you'll want to go and do your own. He said, just let me know, and I want to help set you up. I was like, oh, wow. So we start cleaning windows, and then I'm looking, you're ticking off the houses, and you're like, holy smokes, this dude's making a lot of money off this. And then we were like, okay, we want to go and do our own. So we took every Friday, and we just ran around and started, building up our own run. And honestly, fast forward.
And I heard you mentioning this before. This is like a monthly thing that you could do.
Yeah. So because it rains so much.
So once you build that client base,
you've got it. Yeah. And it's there. And as long as you service it well, then the people don't go looking for anything else.
Nice. They're going to keep coming. We'll keep paying.
2.5 days a week because it rains so much. So you'll do this area week 1, this area week 2, and it gives you 2.5 days to kind of play around with. And then when it rains, pressure wash, clean driveways or whatever. And I actually got a tattoo. It's one of the first ones I had on the inside of my arm, and it's avodah. It's the Hebrew word for worship.
Okay.
It means it's just worship and work. Because in Hebrew thought there was no real separation between the spiritual and the secular. So when we were cleaning windows, my commitment was that I'm not going to miss things out. I'm not going to, I'm not going to just miss windows and then tell people that I did it. And so when I'm climbing a ladder, I keep saying this avodah, that cleaning windows is an act of worship. And
I thought you were going to say it was like a squeegee or something. I was expecting a
little spray bottle.
And like 3 years later, I had a guy that came on and was our sort of like business manager, and we had like 14 staff at one point and all this stuff, and it sort of blew up. And then at that point, after the God of the City thing, which we can hit on, the doors just began to open, and then we had more journeys. So we had this journey of, my wife is a dental hygienist for a day and a half a week now, but she was full-time, but she's self-employed. So back home, if you're self-employed and you go off on maternity leave, you make any money.
Right.
So we went from, 2 incomes to having our first kid, and all we had was £100 a week.
Wow.
And that was the state sort of maternity pay. But we knew that God was faithful in the middle of it, and we stepped out, and we knew He'd spoken. And then I landed this, and then this happened, and then this happened, and all these small things happened along the way, and it was just amazing.
Yeah. So when did so that you mentioned God of the City, so that led to Blue Tree, right?
Yeah. So I've been leading at a bunch of different things, and then I really didn't like and it was always Aaron Boyd's going to lead worship, and I just hated that. I didn't like the one person thing, and still always get lots of thoughts and all this. But So I just I did this thing in church one time where I got everyone to lie down on the ground, and we had a DJ playing some beats, and then I just made this thing up. I think someone must have been stopped for something to do, and I was like, "Well, do something." And so I was like, "Imagine you're in a forest, you know." We walked them through a journey of a forest, and and then they seen this big bright blue tree that stood out from amongst everything else.
That's where the mention from. Yeah.
Firm and be different in the midst of culture, and that's where it all came from. And then I was leading worship at a Youth for Christ thing, which was like a power organization, and it was every month in the centre of Belfast, and there's about 1,500 kids all in this really cool building, and that's sort of where that birthed from, you know. And so Blue Tree was always Aaron Boyd. Like I didn't like you know, the Aaron Boyd thing.
Blue Tree actually played a humbling part in my own life. It was a humbling moment for me. So when I was kind of a new youth pastor and I was working with a Baptist church in Calgary, I was so excited. I was like, I'm a great youth pastor. We're going to YC, taking all our kids up there. And so you guys are up there playing, leading worship. Yeah. And I was like, yes, you know, like brought my kids here. This is going to be really great. And then one of the other Baptist churches in Calgary had a youth pastor at the time who was from Ireland. And he shows up and he's on stage playing with you they're like Blue Tree. And like, so like Brent View's youth pastor was up there and I'm like,
was it Pete Mo? Was it
yes.
So he was in my church.
Yeah.
So I've never really had a set band.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering about that. You just like just the name, just so it wasn't like about you. Yeah. Yeah. So you just like get friends or people you know. Yeah.
And then some have like YC.
Yeah.
Peter Burton, guy that played guitar for me, he ended up marrying Mike Love's daughter.
Oh wow.
Oh really?
I was his best man in Edmonton. And that's the friend I could cry thinking about it. That's the things I love is in this door opening, all of these other people have found their worlds in all of our journey together, you know. And so, how long can you give me? And it's like, I can give you a year, great. And then we'll just go and lead worship for a year. And then it's like, oh, for another year. I think Pete played for me for like 5 years.
Wow.
Super cool.
And I had 5 Petes, by the way, that played for me. And so we all had to give them different names.
Yeah. Go by their last
Pete
names.
Mo was Mo. And then you had Peter Burton, so he's Bert. And then you had Pete Ernest Nickel, so he's Bert and Ernie.
Bert and Ernie.
And Pete Comfort, and he's Comfy. PDK, the DJ, he's PDK, you know.
Yeah.
And all these like Petes, you know, and then me.
Yeah.
But then they would, like Ernie now is a pastor of a church in Cold Lake. And he's here in Alberta.
Okay.
So he played bass for about 4 years.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's like, I always have to keep finding bands. And then I found the boys from Newfoundland. Yeah. And they played for me. And then now they've all got married. And, you know what I mean? It's like, and it's, you know, so it's everything. That's great. I love it.
That was cool.
Yeah. I remember, you guys came to YC a bunch. And then this is actually, I remember, not your first time to Medicine Hat. That's right.
Yeah. I think this might be my third.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This,
we're just such a tropical destination.
Yeah.
It's just a draw.
You can't stay away, you know?
Gotta be here.
Like, God, I need to get to that smoky city. You came to First Assembly 2011 or 10 or something. And I remember this. One of actually Kristen asked if like, hey, like our son wants to go to this Blue Tree concert at the church, but we can't go. Can you just take him? And right around this time, I was like super, like I was just getting into filmmaking. So I'm like, yeah, like I'm like, I should take my camera. Like I love just like filming and recording. And for some reason I decided it's dumb in hindsight, but I'm like, I'm just going to record this whole concert with my camera like this the whole time. And then like years later, I'm like, why did I do that? I should have just like worshipped and like been there. Like, what a waste of time. Yeah. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. What has been, so you've been over 20 years now worship leading in different ways. What has been one of the biggest takeaways about worship in a musical sense that you've kept coming back to, that you like to pass on to other people?
You know, I'm 10 lines into a book, and I was this is what I've been sort of thinking about.
Yeah.
It really, it's not about, and I know it sounds like a great answer, but it's not about us.
Yeah.
It's not about whether or not we feel like it or any of this kind of stuff. If you're thinking about like the tabernacle. My next sort of project is on the tabernacle. I'm going to do small group resources on that and a journey through the tabernacle. So teaching, small group questions, response, and then I write a song about each individual thing. And so just thinking about like if you were there, like whether or not you felt like it or not, you had to do it. And this is your act of worship. You had to sacrifice. You had to do things. The high priests had to do things, whether or not they felt like it or not. And sometimes they're also petrified because if they did something wrong, they'd be struck down. So there's that kind of thing that I was thinking about. And then I think about it's going to be called The Currency of Caesar. And I was at a festival, and I just played at this festival. And I feel like I need to have a massive preface at the start of this. This is the first time I've probably been speaking this out loud. But it's not about shouting at people, or I'm saying we can do better, right?
Right.
I'm at this festival, and I feel like I stayed in everyone's home at this festival. And I love it. I really, really love it. It's a special place. But there's a VIP tent. Well, actually, back up a bit. Earlier on in the day, I work alongside an organization called World Orphans.
Okay.
And so me and my wife will come over. I'm not on staff or anything, but I absolutely love, and there's a story in that, which is just a Galbraith thing and an ordained thing for us. They'd organized that I got this sort of pre-headline slot, right? You know, the headliners are like the King and Country, you know, all singing, all dancing. Well, I had the one just before. Now, that's a really good spot because there's still lots and lots of people. And the reason that was negotiated was because the World Orphans were allowed to do a pitch in order to raise finance. So some years, like one year we sold bricks and we built a school and a medical center in Iraq, and that's kind of stuff, right? So this year they were trying to raise funds for whatever it was that they were doing at that time. And so this was a really good slot to do that. And there's like 20,000 people in the field, and it was a great thing to do. And that was all cool. But then another manager of another artist, which again, we don't have that term artist back home, it doesn't exist. And then they were like, who is this guy? And why is he coming back? So then they kicked up so much fuss that I got built.
Wow.
It happened 3 times in the same day. And my band were furious. I honestly didn't care, right? That stuff doesn't bother me.
Right.
But so then I'm, instead of playing at like 7:30, I'm now playing at like 4 in the afternoon. And it's really hard to communicate with everyone where you're there. It's people, you know, that do want to come and hear you play. So everyone else is raising, I'm not. But we finished and I walked off the stage, and then I'm out with my family, and they come over for the summer. My wife's a preacher, and then I play, and that's what we do together. Yeah. And so we're walking across the field, and my middle child, who's now 15, she's obviously younger than, she sees this VIP tent, and she goes, what is that? And Jill said, that's my wife, she said, it's a VIP tent. People pay money to go and meet these people, you know, on the you know, just played on the main stage. She says, well, why doesn't Daddy do this? Now, I know it makes something really good, but Jill said, because Dad just walks around, and if you want to speak to him, you can speak to him.
Right.
And I just laughed, and then I just went, and I just walked on. But I see this moment, and if we strip the field away, strip everything away, and you have my middle child as a young believer, and then you have this person here that's on a stage and is a believer as well. The narrative and the conversation, which I don't think is a kingdom conversation, is you need to pay me money in order for you to speak to me.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is the currency of Caesar: power, control, lordship. And I'll talk about fame as well, probably, when I'm really getting into it, because that's okay. That's just like being the tip of a spear. I mean, more people might know who your teacher is, you know, or your kindergarten teacher or something like that, because there's like 30 kids in the school, and they've got parents, and so there's more people know who they are. That's okay. Yep. But whenever what we do is we take that and we turn that into a way to demonetize things and to lord things over, then it gets really tangly.
Yes.
And it becomes about us.
Yep.
It becomes about, so what we've done is we've taken the music industry, which is all about, I want to be powerful, I want to be famous, I want to be wealthy, I want to be all of that. We've taken the model and we've moved it here into Christendom, and we've skinned it with Jesus. And we try to say that it's holy. Yeah. And it's like God in all of his grace and mercy still works in the middle of it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because, well, as Christ died whilst we were yet sinners. So obviously there is grace to see through all of this stuff, but we can do better.
Yes.
So that keep coming back to this idea of worship. It has nothing to do with us. It's all about him.
Yes.
And the minute that we make it about us, or I don't like that song, I don't feel like it, get over yourself. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
It's tempting though, isn't it? To like want to be liked and seen or noticed, or, you know, I often think about the ancient Egyptians and how like some guy was convinced as Pharaoh that he was God, right? And I actually don't think it would be that difficult to convince ourselves of these things, right? If everyone looks to you and is, you know, we like that kind of praise. I think there's something in us that craves that, right? But that humility to say no, right? Because it's tempting. Yeah.
it is.
I've asked you, like we've had a few worship leaders on the podcast now, and I've asked all of them, and I'm going to ask you this too. Like, what do you do? What do you have to do to stay out of that headspace of making it about yourself and about getting an ego, getting full of yourself? What are the steps that you take to just keep the focus on Jesus? Like, and if that starts happening, what do you do to step back from that and to stay in the right mind space and the right posture?
Well, it was a conscious decision years ago. So what you'll have is you'll have people that come up and they go, I really love your worship. You're amazing. Now, they don't have a language to actually maybe say in that moment, I really appreciate what was going on.
Yeah,
And the Lord really spoke to me.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you for your
That's
service.
that's
Yeah,
okay. So in this courtesy of Caesar thing, there's a two-way street. We need to go, if you're on a stage, Jesus steps in to a currency of Caesar model and he never partakes in it.
Right.
How dare we?
Right.
Okay, so if we're on a stage, this whole, I have these great, I'm not arguments, but like debates with my wife, even around social media, and I don't want to put stuff out, but then I have people that's maybe their only way to kind of like stay in touch with you. And,
Right.
and I honestly am just a normal dude. I know people say it, but I'm honestly a normal dude. And so that, where it's like, where is self-promotion tip between like, oh, by the way, I've a new song coming out.
Yeah.
That's okay. Like I stuck up a post yesterday. I have a song called What Should We Be Singing? You're the Christ. I found this guy in the Netherlands. He's done a remix of it. It's like an EDM one.
Oh, cool.
Going back to my old roots, you know what I mean? And it's like, this really was a fun process.
Yeah.
So I literally just stuck up a post May 26th and it says Hagen remix. That's it, right?
Yeah.
So I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. One of the things I didn't do was I didn't move to the States because I'm very well protected. I had two managers at one point, which is hilarious. And I had a nice conversation, good friend, still a great friend, but I love a good wrestle with things. And at the end of it, he basically shouted at me and he said, it's okay for you, Bodo, in the States or in the UK, because songs come out of the church. Here in America, he says the songwriters write the songs and hope the churches will sing them.
Right.
Because there's lots of finance in that.
Yep, that's true.
So I never came to the States because it's all about believing your own praise, self-promotion. That's what I seen. That's just my own personal experience, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't want that. I'm protected from that back home,
Right.
where it's like, that doesn't
not
exist.
the culture there.
People know that you go away and you do things,
Yeah.
and you lead worship and you come back.
And there's people that are supporting you just to support what you're doing, not to be like, oh, I want to, because you're awesome and because you're doing great things. It's like, no, God is doing great things through you.
Yeah.
And they just want to support you and be a part of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's so it's like a two-way street. So how dare we ever believe this thing of like self-promotion? But then the flip side of it is that people that look up to people on stages don't think that these people are gods or special. I've met so many people on the road that barely have a faith and don't go to church. They're playing on big main stages, right? And it's like it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It's absolutely heartbreaking.
Well, yeah, I spoke to someone the other day who is they're talking about why they left the Christian music industry, because they're like, they're like, you know, just the things that he saw was like, I couldn't believe what I was seeing from certain people and certain,
they would play they'd play their set and then immediately go out afterwards and party really hard and like these
drinking,
choices,
getting wasted, doing drugs,
Uh-huh.
or even like some pastors, like some mega pastors. He said they'd go speak at an event and then they run into them on the street outside, and you can hear him saying to his assistant, "Get the money and let's go." Like,
Yeah.
it's just like, oh my gosh. So like, did you run into some of that stuff?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like, so what did,
was
there any opportunity for you to try and
have conversations.
encourage? Yeah. Like, was there an opportunity for that or not really?
I'm below them.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I'm below them in their worlds. They're like those 3 times that I was bumped.
Yeah.
Because
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
who is this guy? Why is he playing after me? I'm better. I'm more famous. I'm more popular. I should be there.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's
But that must have been discouraging. Hey. You know,
well,
like,
do you know what? Honestly, I'm quite I'm not what's the word? I'm not self-conscious or
Right. You could care less.
I don't care. I genuinely and it sounds like it's the right answer, but it is my reward is eternal and it's in heaven. Look, if you get everything here, if you get all your glory and all your reward here, it's robbing you of this eternal thing that's there.
Yes.
So it's like I want adulation. I want people to big me up. I genuinely don't want that. What we need to learn is people on stage understand that you're absolutely no special, but what you do and your gift and how you can lead people is extremely valuable for the family, for the church. And then when you're not on a stage, the language of how don't run up to people and go, "You're absolutely amazing. You're my hero. You're this." Just say, "I really appreciate what you did. Thank you."
Yeah.
Leave it at that.
Encourage them.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
You know, but what we do is just like superstar. It's like we need these people in Christendom, like Justin Bieber, or, you know, this kind of stuff. And it's like, this
They're
it's
just a
actually
person.
the opposite, isn't it? Yeah, because like as soon as you're like, God, I'm humble, I'm willing to be used, please use me, and you put yourself in a position like that, and you're like waiting for God to show up, that's where like life impact happens, right? Because God's doing it.
Yeah. I was thinking this is kind of a weird comparison, but I was thinking about this the other day. How like Daft Punk, they just recently ended their run as a group, and I was like, how awesome that they like nobody knows what they look like. I mean, you can find it online who they really are, but like they're not going to be bothered. Like they can go out and just live a normal life. And I've thought about that. Like people talk about like, no, you don't want to be famous. You don't want to be, because it's like you can't just live a normal life. And that's the thing is like there's these people that, you know, like it's just like, oh my gosh, just treat me like a normal person. Like, you know.
Yeah, I was in a production thing at a festival one time, and those 2 stories come to mind. Like one was one of the headliners, and I just landed really in the States, and I had the flu what was going on, right? It was like, I'm just leading worship at church, and now you're at a festival, and like even an early slot at one of these festivals, there's like 45,000 people, and I'm standing, and I'm used to our church where when you strum a chord, everyone knows we're all in this together.
Yeah.
Right? We're all going to go on a journey.
Yeah.
And I'm standing playing away, and there's this hillside, and it's just people just sitting, just eating burgers, just watching. And I remember thinking to myself, like, what is this?
Yeah.
If I just stopped playing, I don't think anyone would know or care.
Yeah.
And so we did
like
it.
just went around, hey, you can be a part of this right now. Like I want you to sing with me. Yeah.
And again, great people, but people only know what they know. And so that's why we can all do better in this and learn and grow. And so I got into the production tent of a band, and they had a trailer thing. And I asked them, I was like, what is this? And they started laughing. And it was at the turn of like iTunes and all the digital stuff, right?
Yeah.
And in the music world was all up, and no one really knew what was going on. People are losing jobs, people are moving, the CDs are not being sold, all that stuff.
LimeWire.
And LimeWire, yes.
Oh, yeah.
I never used it. You probably didn't. I don't have the techie skills to do it. So
didn't want a computer virus.
But this is, as Mr. God is my witness, their response was, it's all smoke and mirrors. It's about convincing people that you're more famous than what you are, and that keeps your value.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
And they said, look at us, we've invested way more in everything that we've done now. When everyone else is pulling back, we've invested more in convincing people that we're worth it. And I walked out with Comfy, my drummer, and I was absolutely devastated. I was like, where is the Holy Spirit in the middle of this? And then I was asking a guy who was helping us with kind of like tour stuff, and he said, Bodo, you get booked because of what you do. And I had to figure out, well, what do I actually do? I was at a festival one time, and I was, and I always called leading worship, because I hate the word concert. I hate that.
Yeah. Yes.
And I felt like I was leading worship, and I started praying, and then I was told it was like one of the first bands or people to play that had ever really prayed on that stage. And I thought, this is
bizarre.
And I know this sounds like Debbie Downer, but it's it's the reality of where it is. And I feel like there's people that are speaking up and there's cracks that are beginning to show. And how surprising, well, not surprising in these days then, where we have these megastars that are built up.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then the wheels absolutely fall off, which I'm okay, people making mistakes, but we've built these people up in the untouchable Egyptian god.
Right, yeah.
Made them superstars.
Look
And
at
then
some of these
those
superstar pastors that have had some pretty horrible things happen.
I was at a church and I seen it, the bodyguards walking them in. I did a couple of conferences and these people have bodyguards
Yeah.
to go to the
For
toilet
real, though.
and you're not
Yeah,
allowed.
for real.
And I'm just like,
For real.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jesus didn't do it, so you're not freaking Jesus, do you know?
Yeah.
It's like,
I mean, as an introvert, it sounds kind of nice.
You're just gonna hire them. Just don't bother Alicia. Just let her be. She hasn't got her coffee yet.
No,
Yeah.
for real though, yeah.
But actually, like that's been like a theme that I've seen. It's been on my heart of people just building up whoever, whether it's your own pastor or whether it's just a mentor that you look up to, and or a politician. Like you're building up and like, oh, this person is who we need to fix this problem that we're experiencing, and then they slip up.
Or they leave. And everyone leaves with them.
And they make some more mistake. Mistakes are fine to make, but but when all your faith is in a person who is not perfect, even like you're gonna be let down, and it's going to hurt your faith because you've built your faith on that.
Yeah, it
Your
needs
faith
to be on
needs to
Jesus.
be in Jesus, like 100%. You can appreciate and support people who are also working for Him, but you can't put all your eggs in that basket. Like it's a shame to see it happen.
like I don't hear what I'm not saying. Like with all of our resources today and with everything that we have, and if we call ourselves followers of Christ and we want to be people that are diligent in the word, I can definitely do better. Like my wife is like, during COVID, I recorded a 8-track EP in my shed and then played Call of Duty. I got my Damascus camo and I was good to go, right?
Yeah.
And she did a theology degree.
Wow, good for her.
I mean, and so right now she's in a course where she's flat out learning Greek, like learning how to speak Greek.
Wow.
So that like she's the theologian.
So when she's the pastor that says in the Greek, she actually knows what her talking about. Yeah.
and yeah, so it's full on, right? And so like that's what she did. So and I'm not a theologian, but what I'm not saying is like don't go to church, but I'm saying if for some reason I couldn't go to church, I'm still going to survive. I don't need someone doing that, because you have enough ability to actually dig in the word and begin to actually,
true.
So obviously going to church is extremely important. Getting together with like-minded people, being reminded we're not for ourselves, a common goal and a common vision. Absolutely.
Well, there's a reason Jesus started the church, or asked for it to the church to be started. Like it's important, But some of this stuff that it's become is there's some things that are just icing. Yeah, we're smoke and mirrors.
Even this thing of like I've been thinking lots about what I'm part of. Like that didn't exist.
Yeah.
So we've set this thing up in so much revere, which is a new creation, which is okay. And God works and the Holy Spirit works in the middle of it. But it's like, that's not what it was like.
Right.
Yeah.
So we've set this thing up, and it's like, so I'm thinking out loud in these things, I'm not afraid in my wee world to do that. But it's like, if we only think, I go to different churches and I love going in and I love leading at loads of different churches. And it's hilarious because, there's 85,000 songs a day what I've heard. I could be wrong. Uploaded on the Spotify, right?
Wow.
And you go to a church and I go, what songs do you want to sing, Boydo? And I go, well, I'm not going to sing like 10 of my own songs on a Sunday morning, right? Because it's people.
If you don't want it to be about you.
Yeah. And so I'll pick like God of the City in Jericho or something like that, right? And then I go, what songs do you sing?
Right.
And there's 4 churches that are essentially navigating the whole thing. And every worship team is modeled on one of those 4 bands. And I'm like, why don't you just be you? Like, and use right songs? No, we'd love to. Why are you not doing it? Well, we don't really know. It's like, it's not a hard process. You just start. You just start doing it. And as you do it, you get better and better and better. And, hopefully you get quicker. And it's like...
Cancel your song slot service.
That's it.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that as well.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a different one. So I love when I come into a church and it's like, well, we have like 3 or 4 of our own songs that we do. And it's like, great, I want to learn those.
Yeah.
It's like, here's 15 elevation songs that we sing. And I'm like, goodness. I'm not against elevation. I don't know those.
Yeah.
But it's like, right.
Right. Yes.
When their senior pastor is credited
Right,
on
yes.
every song, it's like, what did he actually do? Yeah.
So I love when I come into communities and I've been doing some stuff with the church and they want to start writing their own things and I've been coming into there and we've written 2 songs. We went through the process and I kind of helped them figure out this is how we could do this. I brought one of my friends in and we produced it there, So it's great. I love that, and they will sing their songs in their church.
What steps would you recommend people take to start doing that? If they want to start writing songs in their own church and they have literally no idea where to start.
Oh, good.
What?
I have 2 vital questions. That was one of them. Like, what could you encourage if someone's thinking about songwriting? What could you share? And then you have to answer my second question eventually.
Yeah.
So my first song that I ever wrote was a song called River, and
Okay.
it's on the Dog of the City album.
Okay.
It's not Shameless Blood, right?
Yeah.
And a guy came to my church, and he's from the UK, English guy, and it's kind of like this prophetic ministry, and he's passed away since then, but he picked me out of church, and he called me up to the front, and he began to pray over me, and then he began to kind of prophesy, right? And so he basically was saying that you would write songs and you would do this. And I failed every exam I ever sat, right? Like English, all of this stuff. So the idea of me, even the idea of reading books, I couldn't think any worse, right? You know what I mean? Than sitting down and writing songs. It felt like some sort of weird poetry thing or whatever.
Right.
But he prayed over me and he said, Aaron, there's a river of mercy. A river of grace, and you're invited to swim in it. There's a river of life and joy and love and all this kind of stuff. And every time he did it, he poured a bucket of water over my head, right? And this assistant came out of nowhere, right? And she started pouring her over my head.
Yeah.
And I was absolutely soaked, standing at the front of the church, packed. And then he said, death to the past, it's gone. Here's to a new beginning.
Wow.
God's not finished with you yet. And so someone handed me it on a cassette tape, and so I listened to it over and over and over and over again. And then when he said about the song thing, I was like, well, I may as well be able to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just started to sing, there's a river of love that's here. There's a river of grace that's here. And you're invited to come and swim within. And that was the start of it. And that's the first song I ever wrote. And it's on that record. It's on that album.
Cool.
You just have to do it. I'm a melodies guy. I really struggle with content. So I could grab a guitar and I could write a melody. I don't know how, I can't explain it. It's just in there. Me and my old worship pastor, we've written lots of songs together. I wrote Jericho with him.
Yeah.
And we talk about sometimes it just happens. But probably because I would just sit and it would do my wife's head and I would just sit for hours just playing 2 chords.
Well, it's the thing, the only way to get better at something sometimes is just repetition, right? Consistency. I would make, I do video professionally now. And so but in youth group, it started out with me just grabbing a camera and a few friends and trying to make some silly promo for our youth event. And
there are some great videos out there.
There's some pretty campy videos, but
highlights and that.
Yeah. And so, but I would be doing that weekly. If you just do something all the time, you're going to get better.
Yep.
So just consistency, just getting into it, just trying, sometimes you're not going to get something right away, and we live in that culture of just wanting something to be perfect and done and right away. And that's just not practical.
No, I'll get melody and then sometimes I have a song called Beauty for Ashes and I got to go and I led a bunch of girls who were in a safe house. So they'd just been pulled out of human trafficking.
Oh, wow.
And they're in a safe house. And so people are actively looking for them to get them back. And, maybe 13, 14-year-old girls and they have a kid, right? I mean, it's crazy. And I was in Cambodia and I got to lead them in worship. And in the middle of it, I just began to sing, you've given us beauty for ashes, a love and a mercy that wipes our tears away. You've given us grace for tomorrow and hope for today, beauty for ashes always. I'm not that literate.
Yeah.
That is for me, that's a Holy Spirit breathed moment.
Yeah.
I finished the song with the guys. There's a whole other story.
Yeah.
But, and that song it's just that moment, such a special moment. So sometimes lyrics carry their own melody. But a lot of times I'll get a melody that is filled with just generic lyrics.
Yeah.
And then we go, what do I want to say?
Yeah.
Start
to build it out and flesh it out a bit.
So
Yeah.
Tabernacle, I'm first of all writing about how the children of Israel count, and lots of teaching around there. There was all, because actually when they count in the shape of a cross, which is really cool. And then we go onto the altar. So what do I want to say about the altar? So I'll step in thinking about an altar, generic lyrics, Jesus loves us. Thank you, Lord. You're the best. And then I'll get a really solid melody. And then that's when the hard work and the graft happens for me anyway, which is sitting down. And I love writing with people who are stronger in lyric. And because they'll help me say things in a way that I'll never say.
Collaborating too, like bouncing ideas.
Best. It's the absolute best. And it's absolutely open-handed. And it's we're all in this together, And then really dig in the song about the altar. What do we want to say? Is it like our lives are on the altar, or Jesus, thank you that you became the altar, or you put yourself on the altar? Like what's the angle? And make it cohesive.
Yeah.
And I'm not writing in a sense where I'm not writing thinking anything else, but I can see people in my church and can they worship to this? That's it.
Is it connecting with your congregation?
Will this draw them closer to the Lord? Yeah.
So melody, and then for other people, they can write words.
Well, and that's the thing. There's all sorts of different ways of doing it, right? Sometimes it starts with the words, and you're like, okay, how do I put this in a melody? Or that's cool.
Oh, I love it. What's your second
Okay,
question?
vital question number 2. This is an honest question. So I would like to visit Ireland one day, but I have to know something first. Is it true that it is snake-free?
Yeah.
This matters to me.
Oh, wow.
We have nothing that wants to kill you.
Oh, it's just so nice. All of it went to Australia. It's just a pleasant place, huh?
I've genuinely not lying. I've said this for my entire life. It is, and it's only, even like the older I get and the further away I travel, and it's like, it is one of the most glorious places on earth. Like, I will be driving, my wife is preaching on Sunday, and I get in afterwards, and all these people came up afterwards. They said, we laughed at that bit that Jill said. And I was like, what did she say? She said, she's all about the destination when I'm about the journey. So we'll be driving. She'll just put her feet up, kick back, go to sleep. And I'll be driving around the coast. And I pulled up somewhere, and I just stopped, and I just started crying. And she wakes up, and she's like, oh, here you? I was just like, what? I was like, look at that.
Yeah, let's keep going.
I get to live here, and I keep telling my kids, people pay thousands to come and see this.
Right, yes.
It's the longest coastal road on earth, called the Wild Atlantic Way. It's, oh my goodness. When I go home, I'm going with I have the coolest street on the planet.
Yeah.
And it's called Consbrook Drive, and we have the Consbrook Adventure Club. And big shout out Consbrook Adventure Club. So I'm number 10. So I've got number 6, number 8, and number 10. Number 13. Number 13's cousin around the corner, and 5 of us are going to go and climb in the McKillicuddy Reeks, which is the biggest mountain range in Ireland, down in Kerry. And we're going 9, 10, 11, drive down on the 9, we'll climb up on the 10s, and then come home on the 11.
Hilarious.
It's absolutely glorious. It's unreal. We're into surfing, get some of the best waves on the planet. We're the 3rd most popular surf destination.
Oh, wow.
If you love mountains, we've got fast mountains. We don't have the extremes.
Okay,
So
yeah.
our summers, mid-20s.
Yeah.
Our winters, -5.
Oh, wow.
Oh, let's all go.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Sounds great.
It's beautiful. I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
It's great. Oh, we've got questions?
Yeah. Yeah, so we're here at, I don't think we mentioned this at the start, we're at the YXH Conference, hence the different location, hence why Aaron's here with us. And we've got a live audience. Hey, everyone. You can say hi now. And so did we get a few questions here?
Yeah, and we've got 1 minute to spare before they go.
Yeah.
So this is important. What was life in Northern Ireland like? That's your question.
So,
a single question. Okay.
Yep, that's it.
well, so now it's absolutely different.
Yeah.
So before the Troubles in 1998, my wife lived in the city centre. Her parents never driven a car,
Wow.
and they honeymooned about 500 yards away from their house in a hotel. We have the most bombed hotel in the world.
Oh, no.
You would have when I
it's
was
still
growing
standing.
up. Yeah.
Wow.
I think it was an insurance job. I think he just wanted a new bed, so it was like load up, and then inside into the paramilitary. So
We need to do a renovation.
So we had these two warring factions that just wanted to kill each other.
Yeah.
And And anything to do with like Britishness, you would have like kind of Irish people wanted the British out, and then the British wanted to stay there, and so on and so on. We could talk for hours on this, but so before the peace agreement and growing up, even to go into the city centre, there would have been army checkpoints, police checkpoints. Cars would have been checked for car bombs.
Wow.
When I was in stores and stuff like that, you could never leave a bag down because there were fire bombs in them and burn buildings, and they would blow buildings up. People would be shot regularly. People would go to bars, kick a door open, fully automatic weapons to shoot people. And that's what it was like for 25 years. Yeah. So it was insane. And I don't want to say you grew up under fear, but it's territorial.
Yeah.
We don't have the race thing. What we have is like Protestant Catholic divide, loyalist and Republican kind of thing.
Yeah.
So but infinitely changed now.
Yeah.
Mass difference.
Yeah.
Not
Awesome.
So this is an hour. We could talk a lot longer.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
just getting started.
I'm so glad you were willing to do this.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you came on.
Or B.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. What's one thing you want our listeners and everyone here to take away to challenge them with? Just one
Solid
challenge.
advice.
Yeah. Any advice you have?
Well, then let's take on what we've been talking about, because that is really important. And it's not about you. Worship's not about you. And let's stop idolizing people.
Yeah.
And let's start making small incremental steps and try to identify it, see it. If we don't see it, then we'll never be able to change from it.
Right.
So do I hold certain people in too much high esteem?
Yeah.
Or is there a better language? Is there a better way that I can think about appreciating what people do?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I appreciate.
But realizing that it's God doing it through them. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, but I don't set them up as gods,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Thank you for saving this person's life, you know? Thank you for saving my dad. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for doing, you know, it's like, let's not, it's interesting even that probably, like, I don't want to go into it, but like, how Lucifer and I want to be like you and I want to be like a god. And I'm not going to say that that's bleaching into the middle of it, but it probably is. Do you know what I mean? So, selfishness, ego, let's just make small steps, identify that, and then make small changes.
And keep your friends and those around you accountable to that too. Aaron, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you
Appreciate
so
it.
much.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thanks, guys. We'll see you later.